Welcome to another episode on our channel. We're going to be talking about France and its role in World War II. I'm doing things a little bit different because I'm still waiting on some clothing articles and some accessory articles for a French soldier from World War II. So I'll be customizing that figure when I get those items in, which will probably be after the weekend. So in between now and then, we'll probably do a couple other episodes and not continue on with World War II until I can get that done. Normally, I would like to start out with the soldier before talking about other figures like these French resistance fighters that I'm highlighting. They're supposedly brothers. They're the same head sculpt, but the eyes are painted somewhat differently. So they're not identical brothers, but I think you'll see some similarities with the facial features. In the meantime, we'll pause now and get them on a turn tray so that you can see them from different angles, but I'll talk a little bit about France's role in World War II. So we'll be right back. We are back, and these two individuals represent French resistance fighters, and we'll get some close-ups of them shortly, but let's talk a little bit about France and their role in World War II. It's very complicated, and there were divisions in the country. Some commanders wanted to capitulate, some commanders wanted to keep fighting. In the meantime, there was an individual by the name of Philippe Pétain, who was a World War I French hero, was very active with the military for many years. And he was quite upset that the mandatory service had been dropped to 1 year and that the mobilization of troops had been dropped to 20 divisions. And some people even thought that was still too much. Of course, then, the invasion of Poland took place. Fighters were actually sent to Germany to invade Germany in the SARS offensive. I didn't know this until today when I did a little more research, but they were repelled quite quickly. It was a very short-lived battle, and they retreated. And eventually in 1940, Germany invaded France. And in the Battle of France, they were victorious. So they not only invaded France, but they then, after that battle, occupied France, the northern part of France and the western part of France. And the gentleman I talked about earlier, Philippe Pétain, he set up a government in the eastern part of France and became collaborators with the Axis powers. Even some of his forces fought alongside Axis powers. So there were deep divisions in the country. Some people when they knew invasions were taking place, territory was being annexed by Germany, when they knew that, there were some who were really keen on fighting Germany and some who felt that they were in a hopeless situation. And that continued on until they fell in 1940 and officially surrendered. But General Charles de Gaulle, who was exiled and was in Britain, he led the Free French Forces. I had to look there because it's hard to remember, even as FFF, I should remember, Free French Forces. And they continued to fight against Germany. The French Foreign Legion, the majority, I think, of them fought against Germany. Some took their side. It's kind of interesting that there was a division there. Of course, Philippe's position in southern and eastern France, he became more authoritarian in his leadership style. Of course, some of his forces fought on the side of the Axis powers. And then there were resistance fighters, and formally they became known as the French Forces of the Interior. So these two individuals represent that part. of the resistance movement. There were several forces within France fighting for different sides for different reasons. We do know that Philippe in the Vichy government, which claimed to be the real government of France, eventually tried General Charles de Gaulle in absentia, convicted him and sentenced him to death. After France was liberated, Philippe himself was arrested, convicted of treason, and was sentenced to death, which was commuted to life due to his advanced age. He was in his 80s by then, if not before the war started. And eventually his health, his cognitive resources started to fail, and as well as his physical, and he was then in a nursing home and eventually died. So it's just very interesting how different forces were at play within France. But fortunately, France was liberated, and eventually World War II came to an end. So, and I'm sure there's a lot more to this story than I was able to give you in a couple of minutes, but I'll do a little more research, and hopefully by the time we present the French soldier, I'll be able to give you a little more information. But in the meantime, we'll pause now and get some close-ups of these two resistance fighters from the bottom all the way to the top of the head, do side-to-side shots, and then close-ups of the head sculpts. So we'll be right back. So here's the first brother who's in a kneeling position with a Thompson at his ready. He's got a gray suit on. He's very well dressed, black coat, necktie, striped shirt, and of course a matching British hat. Yeah, he looks pretty good. The other brother has a different colored outfit, but it's basically identical. And we'll see him in a bit, but we'll do some side-to-side shots here first and a close-up of his head sculpt. We'll be right back. So here's our first brother. We'll just go side to side and then get a close-up of his face. It's amazing what they can do in terms of articles of clothing on these 1/6 scale figures. This is a very nice looking suit and coat and hat on this guy. So we'll pause now and get a close-up of his head sculpt. So he's mostly to the side, so we'll just go a little this way and then come all the way over to this side. It's a pretty good head sculpt. Can't remember who makes it, but not bad at all. There you go. So here is the other brother with the weathered brown shoes, black pants, brown coat. As we go up, you see a belt, a vest. He's got a pocket watch. The other brother has exactly the same things, except the colors are different. Striped shirt, necktie. Instead of a Thompson, he has a Sten submachine gun and, of course, a matching brown hat. There you go. We'll just go side to side here. It's just amazing, again, what they can do with these outfits. They're so sleek and form-fitting. And he has layers on him. He has a shirt, he has a vest, necktie, and of course the coat. So we'll pause now and get a tighter close-up of his face. You can tell that the eyes are much more intense on this head sculpt, but the head sculpts are identical. I just ordered them from different sources and noticed quite some time afterwards, even though they were identical in terms of name, that the eyes looked vastly different. So there you go. We are back, and I wanted to show you all the countries we've represented in World War II thus far. In the last episode, I only showed you the Polish soldier and the Polish resistance. So I wanted to go back to the pattern of showing you everyone covered thus far. We started with Germany, who were the original aggressors in 1939, the war lasting from 1939 to 1945. What I didn't know at the time was that originally the Soviet Union had a treaty with Germany known as the Molotov-Ribbentrop Treaty, which meant for 10 years they wouldn't be allies, they wouldn't be combatants, they wouldn't be friends, they wouldn't be enemies. But, you know, if they divided any territory along the way, that would be just fine. What is clearly evident, and probably was nothing that wasn't considered by either party, Hitler or Stalin, was that eventually there would be a face-off between the two. It just so happened that Hitler beat Stalin to the punch. And eventually, of course, the Red Army, the Soviet Union, became part of Allied forces. And eventually, after the war was over, in this ugly divorce that took place, the Soviet Union would benefit with the division of Berlin. So anyway, so we had Germany invading Poland on the western side, the Soviet Union invading Poland on the eastern side, and Poland was holding their own with Germany, but against two forces on two fronts. It was too much, and it was just a matter of time before they would fall. They never officially surrendered, but they did fall. And that's when the Polish resistance came into play. And in 1942, it was 100,000 strong. 43, it was 200,000 strong. And in 1944, it was 300 to 500,000 strong. If we can believe in the higher estimate of the two, the 500,000 mark, that was about the same number of troops that started in World War II. 500,000 fighting soldiers. So it's very interesting. France was part of World War II, and we talked about them today. What I didn't know that I shared with you earlier is that France actually invaded Germany, the Saar offensive. They were quickly repelled in 1939, and of course, Germany invaded France in 1940. So little bits and pieces of history that I didn't know when I started this segment on World War II, and how much more we don't know or will ever know is just amazing to me. But that was World War II, 1939 to 1945. So we will continue on. I'm waiting for some clothing and accessories so I can show you a French soldier. And then we'll move on to other countries to include the United Kingdom, United States, Italy, Japan, China, and bring closure to World War II. But before we do that, I do want to update you, because I'll still be waiting for some clothing, I'm sure. I want to update you on how the market is doing right now in terms of 1/6 scale figures and customs and so forth. So we'll do that episode next. So in the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen so far. If you have, please consider giving us a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel. We hope to have another drawing for a Hot Toys figure soon. Either July, early July, or when we hit 2,500 subscribers. So that's just around the corner. So keep that in mind. Keep your eyes peeled. We'll be looking to do that very soon. In the meantime, everyone, please have a great day.